Hi, it's Rich. Well, it must be nice being God and knowing what the end is going to be when the world ends and, when He returns and all these different things, because He can go and love somebody. He can love all creation. He can come and sacrifice Himself and know what the end result's going to be. But as a human being, to love somebody that doesn't seem to love you anymore, and you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know the end result. And do you love somebody because they love you? Or do you love them first? Why do we do what we do? Why do you help people? Why do you care about the people? Why do you love them? Is it for what you get in return? Or do you just blindly love? Love somebody in faith. But do you do it expecting them to love you back? Or do you love them just to be Christ-like? I mean, what does it mean to be Christ-like? So many people want other people to be Jesus to them. Just forgive. Yes, I hurt you, I wronged you. But the Bible says just forgive. Well, there's more to it than that. The Bible also says to love each other. The Bible tells us to be a good Samaritan. Well, here's some of the keys that I've been thinking about recently about being Christ-like. In heaven, God needed to love us. Needed to be holy. When Jesus came and was born and walked on the earth, He needed to be sinless. And He needed to know and have a purpose and to follow through and complete that purpose in the manner it needed to be done. He needed to obey the will of His Father. And so for us to be Christ-like is to obey His will and not live by ours. To go and sin no more, like Jesus said to the woman caught in adultery. Be Christ-like. Do not sin. Or don't willfully sin. Don't sin and ignore. Ignore conviction. I mean, we compromise so easily and justify so quickly the sin that we are so comfortable living in. I mean, if we live that way, are we really Christians? Or are we only a Christian if we're a follower? If our previous way of living we have walked away from and we are followers of Christ. And we now live led by a heavenly kingdom instead of this worldly kingdom. Good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil. I mean, did mankind have that just from eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Or do we gain that from the way we live? Or is it both? Because of the knowledge of good and evil, and we live according to our flesh, we get to the end of our life, and if we look back, and if we're finally sanctified, finally made holy, and we look back at our life, I mean, can you imagine that in heaven? The judgment seat of Christ. Can you imagine standing before Jesus and Jesus says, you became a Christian in 1994 and you lived another 45 years. And how did you live? Well, I see here you lived 41 years. No different than you lived before I came to dwell in your heart. And only the last 4 years did you finally not live according to your flesh. Was that because my dwelling, my spirit dwelling inside of your heart finally changed your heart? Or was it because your flesh was incapable of doing the things that your lustful thoughts and desires could think? Then what good is Christ dwelling inside of you if you haven't been transformed? if you haven't been changed. So today, my thoughts and my focus will be on, am I Christ-like? Jesus got to the point where it felt like it was too much to bear. He said, Father, will you take this cup from me? But not my will, thy will be done. So his flesh, his humanity wanted to give up because it was just too great to carry. It just felt like too much. Kind of an example I have about God and life and the pressures of life is like a balloon. And I'm the balloon and God's blowing one more breath into it. And I'm like, no, it's going to break. It's going to pop. Can't take any more. No more pressure. And God goes whoosh, and blows in it again. Or lets life blow into it. More pressure. Bigger, bigger, bigger. How big will you go until you pop? And what we usually think is unbearable, we find out later as we continue through life that we can handle even more. And unfortunately, sometimes along the way, people pop the balloon themselves. So hope and pray that God will give me the strength and for me to trust Him to apply a little bit more pressure inside of me, to hopefully break off the outside layer of my heart, any hardness, and only leave what He originally created remaining.